My dear listeners, today we are delving deep into a topic that affects us all at some point in our lives: peer pressure. Peer pressure is a force we encounter from our friends, our family, our social circle, and our environment, pushing us to conform to certain behavior or beliefs. It can be both positive and negative. In today's show, with my guest, we'll explore how it shapes our decision and how we can navigate this through positive strategies. So I'd like to bring my guest, Vanel. Vanel, can you hear me?
I
Vanel,
can indeed. Can you hear me?
hi, Vanel. Welcome to the show. Vanel, can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what part of London you're from.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I'm Vanel Delor, born in St. Lucia, raised in East London. I'm currently a CEO and co-founder of Inside Out Charity. I'm a content creator at an online fashion magazine. Qualified neurolinguistics practitioner. I'm a mentor, emotional resilience worker, an absolute catalyst for change in other young men's lives. I'm a devoted father and a massive, avid sports enthusiast.
Oh,
I
thank
grew
you
up,
for
yeah, I grew up in East London, East London, Hackney.
Oh,
Far from the trendy area it is now. I don't know if you've been down Dalston lately. It's pretty
yeah.
trendy, but yeah, we used to call it the trenches. It wasn't quite Baghdad, but it was the Gaza Strip, honestly.
Really? So, what was your experience of being brought up in Hackney?
Psh, Stinky pissy lifts, jug stained stairwells, shootouts, knife crime, heavy gang culture. I grew up in one of the most dangerous estates. In Hackney. I'm in the early noughties. So yeah,
Okay,
it
so
was pretty.
that's very interesting what you just said, right, Vanel?
Mhm.
So, Vanel, tell me about peer pressure that you face as a young man brought up in Hackney.
Well, um, I saw many forms of peer pressure. I was subject to many forms of peer pressure. And yeah, there is many forms of peer pressure, to be honest. And you're growing up in the areas that I grew up in, and to be fair in life, and especially when you're young, influence is very prevalent. I saw the older lot on the estate with the Rolexes and the Mercedes, and I wanted that. Peer pressure can come in the form of I might be convoying with some of my friends, and we're in a car convoy, and one of them takes off, and he goes over the speed limit, and now I'm getting shouted at to don't let them beat me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And yeah, I've seen friends, yeah, close people get addicted to drugs, get addicted to alcohol through peer pressure, and completely ruin their lives. Do you know what I mean? And peer pressure is a very serious thing, and you could be very influenced. But I think all of us, I think everyone's got a grandmother that told them, show me your friends, watch who you hang around with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. If you've got five friends and you're the sixth one, you're like, and they're smoke. The five of them smoke. That you're likely to start smoking also, right? In my case, I grew up around heavy gang culture, so a lot of my friends was doing things that mommy and daddy wouldn't be proud of. So
mm, mm.
um I ended up, yeah, the gang, the gun violence, the knife crime, that was my environment, so I became a product of my environment.
But I really appreciate what you just said, and sharing that with us. But in terms
Yeah.
of you managing the peer
Yeah.
pressure from your friends, what motivated you, and how did you manage that?
Um, in a way, but in how it was, ask the question. Sorry, ask the question again. How did I manage the peer pressure?
How did you manage the peer pressure from your friends and your environment? How did you become resilient to survive?
At times, I will fail miserably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Especially at a young age, because you're um I was young, dumb, and I'm very impressionable. you know. And I saw certain things, and certain things excited me, certain things I maybe didn't want to do, but because everyone was doing it, we just fell into that trap, you know what I mean? So as I got older, I learned to say no.
Okay.
I learned to say no, and saying no gave me that empowerment, yeah, to
Right.
not fall into that trap, you know. But yeah, at younger stage it was very challenging.
So when you said no to your friends and all that, did
Yeah.
they put pressure on you
Mm.
to go and do what they were doing? And so physically and mentally, how was that for you?
Um, it was very weird because my mind saying no,
Yeah.
and everything in me saying no, you know. But like, um, the pressure is a real thing, you know. And it's not like somebody had a gun to my head, but when you've got all your surrounding friends, your close friends around you, and everyone's doing this thing, it's very stressful. It's a very stressful situation, and
Yeah.
not knowing, I wasn't taught how to navigate stress, how to
Right.
handle stress at a young age. So many times I succumbed to that stress, and I did it. I remember I used to tell my friends off for smoking, and what happened? I became a smoker. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't like drink. When I first drank, I didn't like drinking. I became a drinker. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
So what inspired you to change? How did you get out of that
Um,
culture?
um, to be honest with you, many things. It's a very deep question,
Yeah.
because it wasn't just the fact that I changed. I had to change my environment. I had to
Yeah.
change my identity. I had to
Yeah.
change my mindset, my mentality. Yeah, there was a lot of different factors that needed to change. You know, it wasn't just, I couldn't just pin it on one thing, but I
Right.
knew that the life that I was living, I come to the realization that the life that I was living wasn't conducive to my future good, right? So I worked out that I had to change,
Yeah.
and that's easier said than done.
But that's what I'm really interested in. My listeners will be interested in
Yeah.
this too. What motivated? What was the light bulb moment for you to say, right, this is not the life I want. This is not the environment I want to be part of. So what was it in you that
Mhm.
made that change?
It was internal. Yes, it was internal factors, but there was definitely external factors. One of them being me sitting down with some of the older guys on the estate and some of my friends, and we're having a conversation. And we worked out the maths. There are 32 gangs in Hackney.
Yeah.
Roughly around 32 gangs in Hackney.
Yeah.
Between the oldest in the room was around 41. I was one of the youngest in the room at the
Yeah.
time at 25. So there was a lot of experience and lived experience in that room, and
Yeah.
we worked out the ratio was like how many. I asked the question, and how many man has made it out of this life successfully,
Yeah.
and we everyone came up with one name, and
Right.
between 32 gangs, 40 plus 40 plus men per gang. That's around between 41-year-old and me at 25. That's a 10-15 year generation gap. So that's around 6,000 people. So if only one person has made it in that time, and out of
Yeah.
all those people, what chances have I got? So that was a motivational factor for sure. Next motivational factor, massive one, was my daughter. My
Yeah.
daughter sitting me down one day and saying to me, "Dad," and she was 8 years old at the time, and I
Right.
thought I thought she wanted toys. I thought she wanted me to buy a new Peppa Pig toy, and she said, "Dad, I hate coming to visit you in that place. The men, they put their hands on me and they search me, just so I can see you." That,
Mm.
like, I I have a responsibility to my daughter to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm her first role model as a man, right?
Yeah.
So I have a responsibility to raise her correctly, you know. And yeah, I wasn't doing that. So that there was a massive motivation. And then I realized my health, the
Yeah.
smoking, the drinking, the poor eating, my poor sleeping pattern, the health had severely deteriorated. So
Yeah.
therefore, that was a massive indicator. If I continued in the way that I was, I could have easily been in a hospital bed at 35, 40. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know, and yeah, so those factors there was massive motivation to
So
Stop.
when you moved out of Hackney, and your daughter having a significant influence on you changing, what
Yeah.
did you do? What was the first step you took?
Well, what I actually did was stay in my house.
Okay.
Now, and the challenges that came, I never foresaw them, because the phone calls of why I don't come around anymore,
Yeah.
the severe FOMO. And for our listeners who don't know what FOMO is, it's fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I thought that I was missing out a lot on the estate and what we was doing, but I knew that wasn't. I did that, and I haven't really accomplished anything. There's nothing tangible that I could show
Yeah.
anybody or leave for my daughter, in fact.
Yeah.
Do you know? So I actually stayed home, right? But the biggest challenge was the change of mindset and mentality. And it was, how do I, because I've hardwired my brain. I've hardwired my brain. I've hardwired my brain as a type of a way for the best part of 14 years,
All
right?
right. Yeah.
And now I have to completely rewire my brain and my daily routine to something completely different.
Yeah.
So I started to read, I started to watch certain YouTube videos, and I learned about neuroplasticity, right?
Right.
And neuroplasticity is because your brain fires neurons, right? So while I'm doing this, my brain just fired it to my fingers through an electric pulse, right?
Right.
So I learned that because I did something repetitively, I have created these wires in my brain. Now,
Okay.
if I do something differently, because if you want a different result, you have to then do something differently, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
did the same things constantly on the estate, wanting a different result, but
Yeah.
that was very naive of me. So I had to do something different to get something different. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I finally found a video, and I learned about the power of the mind. Yeah, I learned about the power of the mind. I learned breath work. I learned
Yeah.
meditation,
Yeah.
mindfulness, and the power of visualization, right? And that was my next. I embarked on a journey of self-development, right?
Yeah. So, go on. No, so you're
A
saying
journey,
basically you
a
educated
journey.
yourself and
I
self-discovery.
completely re-educated myself, because
Yeah.
when I learned this, while I was learning, and very early on, I worked out why, if I knew a lot of this stuff
Yeah.
before when I was younger, let's say from maybe primary school, early secondary school, this is
Yeah.
being taught. This should have been taught in citizenship. Do you know what I mean? Why is it
Absolutely.
not taught? I don't understand. Like, how to manage stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, how to manage the transition of going from a teenager to an adult. Yeah, and money management, right? And the feelings and navigating those feelings. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because there are so many different emotions that you go through that you have no idea how to manage. Do you know?
No.
And then you then act out and you lash out, but you don't. Me and a lot of my friends, let's say 50% of my friends grew up fatherless, 30% grew up motherless. I was part of the 20% that grew up parentless, right?
Okay.
So that breeded traumas such as abandonment, hurt, loss, right?
Yeah.
And that we didn't even know we were suffering from. So now when we are operating from, now when we lash out in school and we do certain things out on the street, it's because we're operating from these areas, right? But we have no idea that these are the areas that we're operating from, right? So I'm already suffering with that, right? So anyway, so embarking on the journey of self-development, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was enlightening, because I learned that the power starts with me, you know.
Yes. So what you're saying, you became self-aware
I
of who
became
you are.
self-aware of who I
Yeah.
was, yeah,
And you
and what I
empowered
needed
you.
to do. Go on, sorry.
So basically, you discovered through
Mhm.
normal educate, like self-educating yourself really, and
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like, this is not what I want. So once you've done that, you discovered that life was not for you, and
yeah.
you've done all those self learning. What
Mhm.
was the first job you got?
Just before this first job, what mistake I went and done is, guys, this is what we could do. We don't have to do this anymore. And I tried to bring everyone along with me.
Yeah.
But now I know everyone has their own process, right?
Yes.
So I then had to embark on the journey alone, and it
Right.
was it was lonely, you know. It
Right.
was
Yeah.
lonely, but because I was working on myself and I was fine tuning myself, and it felt so amazing to learn this about myself,
Yeah.
that I didn't mind, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the first job that I got, um one day I was walking through the estate, and I saw a friend that was in. I call him a friend, but at the time I didn't even remember his name. He was walking towards me, and he said, "V." Da, 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 da. I had not seen him since the prison, but I completely forgot where I'd met him. Right,
Right.
so he said, "V, how you doing? Rare, rare, rare." So I said, "I'm really good, thanks." But I completely forgot where I knew him from. So then he said, we was talking, so then he referenced HMP Peterborough, and then that's when it clicked. That's where I was with him, and then he started talking about he's doing script writing, production, doing some amazing things. So I said, okay, so who's got you doing these amazing things? I would love to. I'm trying to change my life and do different things myself. So he told me about a charity, and I said a rehabilitation charity, and I said,
Yeah.
wow, okay. I would love to get in touch with the charity and see how they could help me. He's given me the number, and because I was on this journey, I rang them up immediately. They had a course starting the following I think a fortnight later,
Yeah.
and then I joined. I enrolled onto the program, and they had a brilliant 7-step program. Honestly, it was a mixture of equine therapy, which is holistic work with horses, and having helping the horses to help you understand what you have going inside you. And that was, even though I started learning meditation already, that was a great that was one of the exercises that made me realize I had 1,000 tabs open in my head, and it
Yeah.
helped me to organize, helped me to structure, you know, and get rid of a lot of the noisy tabs that was not necessary. So yeah, that was amazing. And along with the other workshops, such as employability workshops. I was 26 years old and I never had a job. I never
Okay.
had I never had an interview, let alone a job. Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the workshops was very necessary, you know, and there was a lot of young men in my same position that just lived a life of crime and violence and and drug culture. That the real world and working and whatnot, earning it on a salary was foreign to them, you know, and it was kind of foreign to me at the time. And so it was a brilliant program. And um
Well,
um
so, Fidel, can I just say something? So once you got those skill sets and you've done all those training,
yeah,
how did you feel?
I felt empowered, you know.
Yeah.
I felt
Okay.
great because it really made me because for such a long time I only saw a long time in prison. For such a
Mm.
long time, I only saw myself being hurt or like, because I've done things and people have done things to me, and I was really a part of that life. My
Mm.
rap sheet says it all. My arrest sheet says it all. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Mm.
And now I had a new lease of life. Honestly, like when you hear it on the TV, at first when I heard that saying, I didn't really understand what it meant, but I
Mm.
honestly got a new lease of life, and I actually saw a future where I could be a positive role model for my daughter. I could actually become something, and I knew that. And through the program, I realized that I'm an amazing individual. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we are all amazing. We are all amazing individuals. We just, because of all the noise and everything we like to put emphasis on everything outside of ourselves and not
Yeah.
realizing we are the power. Then I realized that I am the power, and everybody else in their own right are the power for themselves.
And congratulations on that. And you've done really well. So since then, Vanel,
Mhm.
what have you been doing?
So since then, I was so successful on the program that I then got a job at a television production company, which was
Excellent.
massive.
Yeah.
And we're working on shows on Channel 5, and my name is going up in the credits, and like it was so excellent, right?
Mm.
I've really put myself in a new energy.
Yep.
Anyway, that was great for around 10, 11 months, and the budget got cut, so a company went online. I got called by the organization, the charity that helped me to change my life. And they said, because I was so successful, would I like to come over and talk to some of the young men and inspire them? So I thought, why not? I've never been much of a public speaker, but I said, why not? So I went over there, and I'm looking at the young men, and they look at after I spoke, they're looking at me like I was hope, and I was the light at the end of the tunnel, because I was in the exact same position they were. I came to that charity because my life was in disarray and in a area that I didn't like it to be. So I needed that support. I needed a support network, and I needed guidance, And here is there is a guy with his testimony and how this works. And the CEO was in the room at the time, and she also saw it. So she felt like I would be a massive benefit to the organization. So then I became a mentor, a key mentor for the charity, then a mentor. Then I became the young men clung to me so much that because they wanted to successfully make their transition, and also that.
So what can I just say? So what I'm hearing, so through your life experience, and then you educated yourself, and you realized actually you need to change your life significantly, and then you became a mentor for this charity, and then you realize actually you're a role model, and people are looking up to you. So knowing that, did you feel extra pressure? Oh my God! Now these young people are looking up to me. I have to, help them out. I'm a role model. I have to ensure that I can support them to overcome their challenges and difficulties.
In everything you do in life, there's challenges, and and there could be a level of pressure, right? And there was, because it's a very delicate thing to support a young man from what he's been doing for so long, and then to give him that level of support consistently, well, he's able to take the baton and do it himself, right? Because if you let go of the baton too quickly, he can easily fall back into the old pattern, the old life. So therefore, that is a level of pressure, because this is somebody's whole life, right? And there's times I let go of the baton too early. There's times I held on maybe even for too long, right? But it was all my learning curve, my learning process. A young man that I used to mentor for a short period, but a few times I was unable to go and meet him. He went and did other things, and that young man got sentenced to 28 years in prison only 3 weeks ago, right? So, but on the other end of that stick, I've got a young man that was working at Jaguar, and his dad was in prison for selling drugs. He's been to prison numerous times for selling drugs. Now he gets employee of the month in a row at Jaguar because he's a top salesman. I just showed him how to change. He's just changing
So can I just ask you this now? So it's very interesting. So you got one person that you're working with goes in prison, then you got another one who's going to Jaguar. So knowing those two, what emotions does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
It just makes me feel like when I said that, when I heard he got it, even when I heard he got arrested, I beat myself up. I'll be honest, because I know what it's like to not have a support network. And that young man didn't have a support network, and I was becoming that, right? And I strongly believe that if we did a lot more sessions together, then he wouldn't be he wouldn't be doing that. He wouldn't have done the crime that he did and whatever not, because I was able to wrap my arms around him and really showed him that he was better than what he was doing, and I really feels it's trust in feelings so much, because on one hand, yes, a young man got 28 years that I was working with, and another young man is getting employed a month at Jaguar. It's very contrasting, but I just try to stay looking at the positives and just stay doing the best I can.
Absolutely. And as you know, this Vanel, you cannot
Yeah.
rescue people. People have to change for themselves. You can only,
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's like taking the horse to the cart, but you can't make it drink. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're trying to do a great thing there. But can I just ask you to just moving on? So now, what is the passion and motivation you have, and the principle that you live by now?
What is the passion and the motivation and the principles that I live by now?
Yeah.
Um, the passion and the motivations and do you know what? I'm so motivated every single day,
Mm.
every single day by the young men that I work with,
Yeah.
because like I keep saying, I was there,
Yep.
and I'm so grateful for the life that I live now, for my daughter, for my family,
Yep.
and at one stage the future never looked so bright, and I know that everybody has the ability to do great things,
Yeah.
and it's about the 3 A's for me: your ability, your attitude, and your application. At one
Okay.
stage, everybody's got attitude, everyone's got the ability, everybody,
Mm.
right? But where I was failing was my attitude, and my
Mm.
ability was just in a terrible place, right?
Mm.
So it's one of the most things, one of the first things I do with the young men, right, is um yes, and is supporting them with that, right?
Yeah.
Um
So can I?
and go on.
No, go. Sorry. Go.
And yeah, and that keeps me going massively, to see their when they thank me, and they thank me for that support. Yeah,
Mm.
I get the phone call from their mom or their dad or their sister or the brother. Yeah, and taking their son or even their daughter from a life of crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and through my NLP, I'm a massive empath also.
Yeah.
I've always been a nurturer in a way, even though I was on the estate and I had to be a different sort of animal. But I have a big heart, right? And I've always listened. People always felt comfortable to speak to me.
Yeah.
So this is why I did an NLP course,
Okay.
so I became a neuro linguistics practitioner. I am halfway through doing my master's at the moment. Um,
Congratulations. Yeah.
thank you so much. And yeah, so that gave me the structure. Yeah, so when I am speaking to people that's dealing with trauma, that's dealing with depression and certain negativity that's going on in their life, I'm able to through a structure guide them to a more enthusiastic mindset, right? And a more positive mindset, and hopefully putting their life on a more positive trajectory.
Well, but no, you're doing tremendous. Look what you've done. You're going to university. You've done the NLP course. You're doing all this work. So tell me,
Mhm.
when you talk to young people now,
Yep.
who are experiencing similar situations that you've had, right?
Mhm.
What is the one thing that you tell them?
I tell them many things, to be honest. What is the one? To ask the question again, sorry.
So, when you're working with young people now who
Yeah.
been in trouble with the criminal justice system, right?
Mhm.
So what do you tell them? Like, how do you motivate them? What do you say to them to say, look, this is me, this is my experience.
Mhm. Yeah.
How?
Firstly, I don't go crazy into detail about my past,
Yeah.
but I give them a little snippet because it makes me relatable. Yeah,
Yes.
it makes
Yeah.
me relatable. It builds that rapport with them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking from a textbook. I'm not telling you this because I learned it from somebody else, or I'm doing this because of a job. I'm telling you this because I once was there. I once was in that exact same position. So right off the bat, I am relatable, I essentially know what you're going through, right? And this is how I navigated. This is where I am right now because I did this, right? And there's nothing stopping you. And everyone's got their own path, right?
Yeah.
But I have the foundation and the basics, yeah, to help you on that transition, right? So, and also, I let them know that they are not defined by their arrest sheet, yeah.
Yeah.
They are not defined by the criminality and the crime that they've committed in the past years. That's happened now. They are
So can I ask you this question? Because we're talking about peer pressure.
sure.
Do you think, like, especially in the city of London,
Mhm.
because of the environment where a lot of the young boys are, is it just boys, or do you think now in postmodern society
Yeah.
that it's not just boys, it's girls too, that the pressure they have is absolutely, taking all their life skills, like making them get. What I'm trying to say is, do you think that the opportunities society is not giving them, and they do not have the structure in place to help them to fulfill their true potential?
I definitely do. In a nutshell,
Yeah,
very simply, yes.
yeah,
There when I was growing up, there wasn't social media essentially like there is now, right?
yeah,
Social media has just absolutely taken over, and that creates such a massive amount of peer pressure. Also,
yeah,
now that's not just for young men. That is for older men. That is for older women. That is for younger women and
yeah,
adolescents. Because we've got
yeah.
children. Let's be honest, children as young as 5, 6 on social media and thinking that they need to live a life that they don't necessarily need to be, or they need
Yeah.
to do certain things that they don't necessarily need to be, or harming themselves. And we've seen certain things like the butt implants and breast implants and BBLs and cosmetic surgery boom now, right? That's another massive form of peer pressure.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I don't feel like the rapid rate of the different sorts of peer pressure, especially on social media, that's
Yeah.
growing. I don't feel like there's services at all there to support these people to, not fall into those traps. One, and to
And also,
help
do
them
you,
get out
and
of the.
do you think society judged these young men and women who come from background where they got a lack of heroes, uh, a single parents background, the economic hardship? Do you think, as a society, we harsh them hardly and we don't give them enough care and love and opportunities?
I do feel like that for sure. But
What I'm trying to say, do you think we misunderstand them more? Like we don't give them the structure in place to support them as a society?
like I was just previously saying, I definitely don't think that I definitely do feel like there's a lot of judgment,
Yeah,
and not enough support.
yeah,
There's not enough services. There's not enough. To be fair, if you're talking about the areas where I come from,
yeah,
the information about support is very lacking, right?
yeah,
The poverty is so rife that is the only thing on everybody's mind and everyone's talking about, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
lack, right? So there is it's like a not a forgotten place, but in this essentially it's like a forgotten people, right? And
Yeah.
it's like if you're from those areas, then you're not worthy, you're not good enough, and
And
you can even feel like that yourself, like you're undeserving, because
so
this is how society makes you feel.
absolutely. So do you think the peer pressure, because of the environment they're in, the economic situation,
Mhm,
and the family background plays huge impact? But then, from your perspective as a mentor, as an educator now,
mhm.
I mean, how do you inspire young people to confront their fears and embrace their worthiness?
How do I sorry, it lagged a little
How
bit.
for you as a mentor and as an educator and working with young people now, what I want
Yeah.
to hear, like, how do you inspire those young people to confront their fears and embrace their worthiness?
First, I for you to change anything, you have to notice that it needs changing, correct?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I implore people to notice their state.
Yeah,
Notice the state that you're in. And
yeah,
growing up in the areas that I grew up in and working with these young men, I noticed the states that they're generally in. And one of those states is something it's an NLP term, and it's called crash state, right?
okay,
And crash is an acronym for collapsed, reactive, because you're in a collapsed mood, right? You're not
okay,
walking confidently, you're not walking with your chest out. You're very reactive to what's going on because that's what you've kind of been subject to. You're
Yeah.
in something called analysis paralysis. Yeah. Foveal vision, where another word for it is tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation, a fight or whatever, and someone says, when you've heard the other accounts, you've heard, oh, this happened and that happened, and you wasn't aware of it because you was just focused on what was actually going on, right?
Yeah.
And then the S is separate, and you're separate from, you might be surrounded by a lot of people, but you're separate from
Yeah.
things, and and like I said earlier, the H is hurt. You're operating from a hurt place, right?
Yeah.
So I get a lot of the young men to notice the state that they're in, and
Yeah.
the state that they're predominantly in, and then I teach them the counterbalance to that, which is the opposite of crash date for me is coach date, and it's something I do every morning before I leave my house, right? And C stands for centered. You have to make sure that you're grounded, and you're centered, because you could leave your house and you could wake up in the greatest of moods, but you look at your email, you get a phone call, and it could really ruin an hour or maybe even the next day. So then so coach day, and then open. So now I'm not closed. I'm kind of open to all possibilities, right? And the opposite of analysis paralysis, the A, is aware. I'm aware of my surroundings and aware of everything that's going on around me. I am no longer in foveal vision. I am in peripheral vision. So I'm able to have access to all the information so I can make an informed decision, right? Then I have then you have to see, which is connected. I'm no longer separate. I'm now connected to everyone, right? And then H is holding. I'm holding the space between me and you right now, Yassim,
Do you know that's so beautiful what you're saying. Go on,
Also, if somebody's able to come to talk to me, I'm able to hold that space for them, and make them feel comfortable. That's one of the tools that I implement. I empower a young man with, first and foremost, and I let them know how much they are. The power starts with them, because everything you see in the room right now, Yassim, in your room, the mic, your headphones, the phone behind you, that all started where? Not in a factory. It all started in a man's mind or a woman's mind, right? So what does that mean? That means the power starts with me. The power starts with them, So you have we are not the perfect human beings, right? But what we are is the perfect creators. You have the ability to create anything you want within your life, right? And that also, you can change the circumstances of your life within 40 to 70 days, of that consistent work. And it all starts with right here. And I'm not telling you this because I've read it. I'm telling you this because they say the proof's in the pudding. I am the pudding. You know what I mean?
So in light of what you just said now, which is very powerful, and you made a really beautiful statement about how you educated yourself and where you got to now. So if you had a chance, what would you say to young Vernel about 10, 15 years ago? If he was to see you now, what would you say to him?
If I was to see young Vernel right now,
what would you say to yourself?
I'll give him a slap behind his head.
Oh, no violence. We can't have that.
This is me to me, though. This is me to me.
We can't have self-inflicted
violence.
Because
because he was so hard-headed. He was so hard-headed, and like you couldn't get through to him. You couldn't get through to him.
Why was that? Why was that?
A mixture of many things, a mixture of family trauma, a mixture of the environment, a mixture of negative internal dialogue, a mixture of a really deteriorating mindset. Honestly, I was subject to so much at a young age that it's like I built a wall around my head, and now I'm just I'm not calm anymore.
But do you think that Vernel at that time just needed someone to be around him, giving him help and guidance, and he probably needed some hero? Just
He I don't know about a hero, but what I do know is that support, that human connection, that genuine human connection, that care, is needed. And they say it takes a village to raise a child, but at the very minimum, it takes your mom and your dad. And
So
yeah, that's not something that I had, you know, and I was pushed from pillar to post. So therefore, I then built a character in my head,
right. So
and then that
but-
character needed to survive, and he needed to hustle, and he needed to,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So now that
mhm,
you're a father yourself,
yeah.
what's your relationship like with your daughter?
It's absolutely amazing
Okay.
because like I said, I didn't have it. So I knew that what I didn't have and what I needed and what I wanted, just simple things though, just simple things, just a conversation,
Yeah.
so I can understand why am I feeling like this, you know? Um, and yeah, just that guidance, you know. I make sure I impart it in my daughter massively. When she's ringing me and she's like, "Yeah, Daddy, I just done a great meditation." Oh, that feels great. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, I have a great relationship with her. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. So now, going forward to what you're doing now. So what are you doing at the moment? Because I'm sure the listeners would love to know what you're doing.
Well, I do currently in the interim. I do some content creating for an online fashion magazine,
Yeah.
but the passion is to I'm building a charity myself, a rehabilitation charity. There's two parts to that charity. The first part I've kind of embarked on now, maybe 9 months on. I have put together a detailed outline of my lived experience, right?
Yeah.
It's the story is pretty harrowing. It's very centered around gang culture and the judicial system,
Yeah.
but it's also a story of change and a story of hope and a story of
Yeah.
empowerment. You know, and in that story, through my mentoring skills, my NLP practicing, I'm able to. I also impart wisdom and skills and knowledge to those young men and women that I'm talking to. And I do
Yeah.
these talks at private schools, state schools, schools, probations, and prisons. And some of the listeners might be saying, why would Vanel go and do this at a private school? They're not affected by gun culture or gang crime. But what they are is our future politicians. They are future decision makers, you know, our future highly influential people in society, right? So the narrative that they used to hearing on in the media, in the newspaper, is usually a negative one. So what I do is try to hopefully change that narrative, change the perspective, you know.
That's interesting. You said, hold on, Venno. That's interesting. You said that you're
Yeah.
saying that if you go to state school, you're
Mhm.
more likely to become the next prime minister or the judge or lawyer, whatever that is. But do you think that they,
You mean in a private school?
yeah, but
Yeah.
okay, I understand where you're saying that. But what about if you're from a working class background? You don't think there is that opportunity if you're from that background?
Um, the opportunities are there. They're there, but they're not as prevalent as they are in a private school, because
Right.
all of these reports coming out, and just like the cricket report came out the other day,
Yeah.
that was a harrowing report, and that said that there was systemic racism
Yeah.
systemic racism within cricket itself. Our
Yeah.
mayor just said that there was systemic racism in the police, in the Met Police, and these
Right.
are the people that are paid and paid to protect and to serve us, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the places where I come from is predominantly black. It's predominantly the minority of society, and yeah, so they are not being systemically racist to those people, to the majority. They're being systemically racist to the minority. So that is also a barrier. That's also a challenge, you know.
Yeah.
It's not coming into this world especially living in the West. Unfortunately, it's not great. You know what I mean? It's not a level playing field. But you know what? That's never. I love a challenge, and that's never deterred me. You know, I've got work to do.
Well,
There's a lot.
you've opened up a very big topic here. I mean, I don't want to go into that, but I
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
saying.
That's a whole
But
nother
yeah,
segment.
but that is a valuable point that you made in terms of the peer pressure from the society and institution and how
Yeah,
it impacts on young people in terms of the opportunities and restrictions that it has, and in
yeah,
terms of your race, gender, and your background. But I will cover that in a later topic.
yeah.
But what I want to go back to you and just
Mhm.
ask you again. So when you tell me something about your setback and failures in life, and what have you learned from that, and how have you tried to use that in a positive and constructive way for yourself?
My setbacks. Do you know what? I feel like a lot of my setbacks in life was not coincidence. They was necessary. And that's how I choose. There's a technique in NLP called reframe, and
Yeah.
it's about putting a positive spin on a negative situation,
Yeah.
right? So I used to look at setbacks as and they used to create limiting beliefs in me also, right? Because I've been set back on that once or many a times, then yeah, that's not for me. But I've come to realize that maybe at that time that wasn't right for me, right? And what didn't work in the past wasn't meant for me, whether it was at that time or whether it was not meant for me at all, right? Because I less of the victim mentality,
Yeah.
more of the it didn't happen to me, it happened
Yeah.
for me, right?
Yeah.
And when I come from a standpoint of it happened for me, then
Yeah.
therefore I feel empowered in that, you know.
Yeah.
So I go back and I look at my setbacks and I look at my failures and I
Yeah.
see, what did I learn in that?
Yeah.
What can I take from that? Okay, cool, the negative happened, and that's fine. But there's also something positive that happened in there, and however difficult that may be to find that, it's in there somewhere, do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are harrowing things such as sexual abuse and whatever not, but that's not what I'm talking about. But a majority of the setbacks and the failures that we go through, we can learn from them massively, and they could actually propel us. Because what a
Yeah.
setback can do is actually, you can actually use it as a slingshot, yeah, to propel you into your life on a sustainable trajectory.
Yeah. I mean, so when you work, that's really powerful what you just said, and I want to acknowledge that. I'm sure my viewers too.
Yeah.
So now that you go to school and you do motivational talk, do you, apart from the private school, do you go to state schools, like comprehensive? And how do you find?
So, like I said earlier, I do privates. I go to private schools. I go to state schools. I go to pupil referral units, that
Yeah.
through schools, and probation and prisons, right?
Yeah.
I go to predominantly I go to state schools because they are highly affected by knife crime, and I went to a state school, and I felt I had friends carrying knives from year 7 and year 8, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like the early intervention is massively needed in the state schools, massively needed in the state schools. So this is why I have a passion to do it, because being a young man and trying to get your education, you're going through so much changes within your body and within yourself,
Yeah.
let alone the peer pressure that we've been speaking on. So now, if you could have somebody like me that could come and tell you what it's like if you do go down that path, yeah, and that could maybe steer you on a better path. This is why I do it for, because I probably needed to hear me on that stage, maybe in that assembly hall, when I was 12, when I was 13, 14, 15, you know. If I had heard what I've got to say right now, there's a chance that I wouldn't have went down that road. And I know that I'm not going to change. If a young man's gone down that road already, I know that I'm not going to change him right now. But what I'm hoping is that I could tweak something in his brain, that if his friend goes to pick up a knife, or he thinks to do the same, he then thinks, oh, this is what happened when Vanel picked up a knife, or his friend did, or this is the situation Vanel was in, and this is how you could end up. You could literally end up dead, or you could end up doing a long term in prison, like some of my friends are.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
But no, listen, this has been fascinating. We're coming to end of our show. I just want to ask you last questions before we finish here.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I just want to say, knowing what you know now,
Mm-hmm.
how would you share your significant life experience and what you've been through? How would you share that with the people that you work with, and how would you inspire them to say, look, these are the opportunities available for you. If you go on this line, this is what could happen to you. How do you motivate them? And most importantly, how do you motivate yourself to keep on doing this?
I've come to learn that we wasn't put on this earth to just go to work and just live by ourselves. Human connection is one of the biggest things in life. So I'm more, like I said earlier, I'm massively motivated by when I see a young man, when I've broken that cycle for him. He's been going to prison for a number of years, living a life of crime and making his parents and his children very upset, you know. And when I've successfully helped him and he phones me and he's like, V, like, I'm loving work, yeah, and I don't have to worry about the police. I don't look over my shoulder anymore. That is motivation to me. Yeah. When I'm watching the news, I'm reading a newspaper and it says that a young man has just been sentenced to this much years, or a young man from East London, from Hackney, from Peckham, from Brixton. I know that young man's likely to be black, you know. These are my peers, you know, and I have the skill set, the ability, and the platform now, yeah, to help them realize that there's so much more to their lives, yeah, because they have the ability to be amazing people. And once upon a time, they did that because they had to. And like I said, I did it because of survival. I did it because of hustle. Yeah, I had to eat, you know. There was nobody else putting food on my table. So, but I'm trying to show them that there's another way. And they're incredible individuals. And I'll try to empower them and help them to see that, you know, and where they can be better people and not die or go to jail. And that's my motivation, honestly.
Well, do you know what, Vanel? Thank you for sharing your story. There's so much richness in that and so much value. And I'm sure our audience have learned so much from you. And from me, I would like to say congratulations, Vanel, for having the resilience, being focused and determined to change your life. And what you're doing now is outstanding. You're going out there, you're helping those young people to change their life. So keep on doing the positive work, and you know, and you're a born winner, Vanel, and the experience you have will contribute to our society. But I just want to say thank you, Vanel, for your valuable contribution. Dear listener, remember, understanding peer pressure empowers us to make a choice that aligns with our values. Remember, peer pressure is something we all encounter, but with the right knowledge and mindset, we can navigate it successfully and make a choice that enrich our lives. Thank you for joining us today. Till next week, this is Josh saying to you all listeners out there, take care and look after yourself. See you soon all. Bye. Dear listeners, and thank you for joining Josh today, and it's good to talk to Josh now. So today's subject is going to be about men's masculinity. As we all know, what does masculinity mean in modern society? How do we men project ourselves? What are our values? What kind of relationship do we have within ourselves? Now, a lot of people, especially men, they're afraid to talk about masculinity. They're afraid to express themselves, to allow their thoughts and feelings to be shared. As men, we do not want to talk about our mental well-being and how that impacts on our masculinity. So remember, do not be afraid, but call Josh on 07852 473 473, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you. Remember, it's a relaxed